I think that we are live streaming now. Today is August 23rd. It is 10:02 a.m. I am Christina Dillabo, Director of Communications for the Desert Southwest Conference, struggling with my Google Chrome different profiles. But this is Tuesday Talks. Thanks for joining me. It's a weekly conversation with church communicators where we share information about what's coming up in terms of resources or events, and ask questions, offer tips for each other. So let's get started. The first item that I have on today's agenda is what's available or recommended for a church app. Does your church have an app that they're using? Would a church need an app if you don't have one? So that's more of a group question to start off. Do any of you here that are joining me today, do you know if your church uses an app? So raise your hand and tell us what you're using. All right, Chris?
We used to have one. It was the My Church app, and nobody really used it. So we found that the website was just a much more effective way to reach people.
That's helpful. Do you know anything about like why the church decided to try an app?
Just as another channel of communications. So
Okay.
It was one of those things where we were hopeful that it would be like a place where somebody could go to find out everything, to find, a way to connect online, to submit prayers, to watch a service. But again, people just ended up going to the website more than anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. So I had a conversation like this with one of our churches, was thinking about getting an app, wondering which app is recommended, what app what app company are other churches using, what's their experience like, that sort of thing. And so we kind of, we looked at what the United Methodist Church recommends, and I'm going to share my screen so that you can see a little bit more. Here we go. So GCFA, or the General Commission on Finance and Administration, it's an agency of the United Methodist Church, has several partner organizations. Subsplash is one of them. It is kind of an all-in-one. It's an app, it's a website. I think it's also live streaming. Yeah, there it is. It does giving. So lots of stuff. I'll send you guys the link to it. So that was answering one part of the question, is what does the United Methodist Church recommend, or what resources are out there? This other article from Resource UMC asks questions like, do you even need an app? And so there's things like, it's lists here mobile websites, but I know it as, is your website responsive? And I'm going to demo that in just a sec. And so they also talk about some other apps to consider. And I know some of our churches use Subsplash and ShareFaith. I can't remember, there was another one that we talked about that I don't see listed here. But anyway, I'll include this article for you all to read as well, in case your church ever starts talking about it. But I think I'm in Chris's camp, church camp, I guess, of, do we really need it? So I'm going to show you, demo for you what a responsive website looks like. It just so happens the Desert Southwest Conference website is responsive. And one way that I can show you that is because we use a Divi builder. I can show you what our website looks like on a computer. Of course, this isn't kind of in the back end, front facing back end. And here's what our website would look like on an iPad. So notice how the squares moved. It didn't just shrink to fit. It moved to fit in a way that makes sense on an iPad. And then if we look at it on the cell phone format, it switches them again. So this is what a responsive website looks like. It just means that the website automatically rearranges things so that it fits well, it maximizes the space on your device, and everything, you should still be able to read everything easily. versus a website that's not responsive, it would look like this, but regardless of what device you're looking at, and if you were looking at it on a phone, it would just shrink it way down where you'd have to zoom in to try to find stuff. I don't know if you've ever experienced something like that on a website, but so that's what makes that's an example of a responsive website. So if you already have a responsive website, I'd say the first part of the app experience is already taken care of. But what are some other reasons why a church might want to have an app? We talked about, well, so that everything's there. So you can see the live streaming right on the website. Well, you can have a link on your website. In fact, I'm going to go to, I think, mycalvaryphoenix.org. Let's see, I'm going to check it out before I share my screen again. Might
Christine,
just be, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I just had a quick question. So that responsive website, are you using WordPress or what's your website?
We are using, it is a WordPress based website, but the part that I was showing you is a Divi builder on WordPress. That's kind of a drag and drop, and you can, like, as I showed you, you can see the different formats for it. And you can even select stuff to not show on the iPhone, but it will, on a phone, but it will show on an iPad or vice versa. You can select, it's really a cool builder, and I can show you more about it if you want. So I'm going to share my screen again. So this is mycalvaryphoenix.org. It is a responsive site. Another way that you could tell is just by changing did you see how it reformatted? By changing your screen size, you don't have to have a Divi builder to see, oh, okay, it does move around. So that means it's responsive. So we were saying on an app, why would you need an app? Because you want everything to be all in one place. Well, right here, they already have online giving. And if you were to look up mycalvaryphoenix.org on your phone, you'll see how beautifully it formats so that the online giving link is clear. It's easy to find. If you wanted, same thing with the contact us. I think on the phone, this stuff formats similar to the conference website where it just stacks right on top of each other. You can find the social media channels, the YouTube. If they were streaming, that would pop up right away. So, there it is, the Welcome to Church Online. You can click on it. So really, everything is here on the website. So maybe you don't need an app. But something that the website doesn't do that an app could do is track who is using this device. If people are just visiting your website, you're not able to just send them a message out of your website. You could put something on your website, but they're not going to get a notification that your website was updated. The app or an app would likely allow you to do something like that, to send a text message, to send an alert. So I'm not trying to recommend go the extra mile and purchase an app and have to deal with all that administrative work of using an app. But I did want to be fair in case people are wondering about that. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, that was one of the benefits, was you could send push notifications through the app. But when it came to, it was more work to keep up and maintain and to keep current. But they might want to check with, if they do online giving, some of the online giving portals have an app, like an app template that's included with the online giving package. So they might want to check with their online giver to see if that's available.
Great, thank you. So keep that in mind. What do you know? What organization you all use?
We use Banco, and they have one. We don't use it anymore for the reasons I just gave, but it is available. Thank
you. So the next item happens to be something that I believe it was you, Chris, that provided me the extra information. It's about, before I move on, are there questions about the app? Okay.
I guess my other question about the app would be, would it provide some additional ease of use for viewing the live streams and the online that a regular website doesn't. I mean, a regular website, we can send a link to, Facebook Live and things like that for Sunday mornings, but it's still like a couple of clicks, right, to get to it. And, for people who are normal congregation folks, they're kind of used to that. But I think for newcomers, if there was something that was really user friendly and they went to an app on their phone and they could watch the service from their phone with, headphones on and in the privacy of their living room and not bother any other family members. And it was just a one-click thing. They're at the app. And then there's something, I don't know, because I haven't played with these apps to know all that they do. But if they create that interface for online worship viewing and interaction, I think that might be at least better than what we have on our website. So
yeah, I love that you're bringing that up, because nowadays, we can't just be focused on the people that show up in person. We do need to think about what is the environment, what is the experience for those people that are joining us online. So, I would want to rip apart and ask questions about so what is the app offering? It's definitely, a perfect app with a great viewer experience in my mind would have, and these are the questions you should ask yourself, is it would be really easy to see, the screen maybe would be filled with the worship video. A perfect app in my mind would have a spot where the viewer can engage with someone or with the other viewers. So there might be an online form to ask for prayer, maybe. I don't know that you'd want to set up a situation where they're live messaging each other, but that exists on Facebook. And yes, Chris, you would definitely embed the video code. So I want to tear apart, what are the things that we would want to have if we could do it all on a website? So having the video fill the screen, so you could embed a video code and make sure that the code in there is something, it's going to look different on a phone, but I would recommend having at least 600 wide pixels, because then it's going to have a decent amount of space on your page. And you could, depending on the type of builder you have, website builder, maybe you can add a contact form on the side or just below. So at least a person would be able to message out, I would like this prayer request. And depending on what your website can do, that form could either generate a text message to someone on your worship team, or at least send an email with that information, someone on your worship team or prayer team that can either share the prayer live during the service, if that's the type of service you have. At my church, there would be a moment where people could ask for prayer right then and there. It's not always like that every worship service, but sometimes they do have that. So that's one way of being able to incorporate the people online into the in-person and live streaming experience. So they're not just viewers, they're actually participants. Another thing that you'd want to make sure is easy is to have a donate button or some instructions of mailing in a check then. And all of that really can be included on a web page, where all you have to do is just have one button on your homepage on your website that says worship with us or something along those lines. And it brings them to that page that's already set up to show that video, the live video embed. Maybe you don't have it set up that way and you would need someone to update that every week. That's a 1 or 2 minute process. It doesn't change. The information in there is going to update with this week's video, but it would be really easy to train someone how to do that. And that person might be the one that you invite to, can you also keep track of any prayer requests that come in through that form? And now this person has a new leadership position at the church, and really it feels really important, feels like they're making a difference or contributing for the life of the church and the people that are online. So it's one thing to think about. So you maybe don't need to have an app to have an interactive experience like that. And churches that are live streaming their service on Facebook, Um, it, the other thing I would recommend on something like that would be to have someone from your church watching and paying attention to the comments so that they can respond back if somebody comments. Have it be an engaging thing so they're not just putting their comments out there in outer space, in internet space. And I don't know, maybe God is listening. I don't know. Have some interaction built in there with a team that maybe could take turns. So it's not always on one person's shoulders. And then have a time where that person that's volunteering for that week is ready to paste in there the donate link. So if your Facebook doesn't have a donate button set up, because it is taking a while to do that, just have a person scheduled to paste in that donate link during worship or asking for prayer. We're about to go into prayer moments. Start thinking about if you have a prayer request that you would like to paste or comment. We'll make sure it gets to our prayer team. Thanks for watching, things like that. So any other questions or comments about that? Okay. All right, then let's move on to the next item, which is about the SRP, the solar panels that we talked about. Oh, what a journey that has been. I just feel terrible. Number one, it is a great thing. And I think, it's important to share information. Sadly, in this case, that little bit of information isn't really helpful for our churches because SRP does not support religious organizations or churches with the solar panel project. So individuals or other organizations might be eligible, but not a church. We didn't know that at first. Now we do. So just want to make sure everybody's aware. Then questions about that or other comments? Okay, go ahead, Jim. You got to unmute.
There we go. I'm sorry. Question, that was for SRP, but do we have any information on APS?
Yeah, APS didn't have exactly the same program. They talked about, I think I shared the links last week about what the APS program is, but it wasn't specifically about solar panels. And I don't know for sure. I haven't heard anything about whether APS's program would work with religious organizations or not. So I don't know.
I'll have to do some investigating. For those who don't know, the difference or the dividing line between SRP and APS is the Arizona Canal. So if you're south of the canal, it's SRP, and if you're north of the canal, it's APS. We happen to be in the APS district.
Gotcha. Thanks, Jim.
Sure.
Okay. Then I did get some questions about the Builders Union grant that we mentioned, I think a couple weeks ago. So one of our churches, who had said that? Bob Cutlip had shared about how his church had benefited from a Builders Union grant. He didn't go into specifics about what was broken or what wasn't working at his church, but he said, be sure to contact your district superintendent if your church needs some extra funds to fix something on your campus. So I shared that, and then I found out that not every district has a Builders Union grant. Some districts have like a couple other grant options, like through a foundation or some other organization. But so I'll tell you a little bit more about the South District grant, because that's the one that does have the Builders Union grant. And then I'll tell you what's going on with the other districts. So the Builders Club supports smaller congregations in the South District that need financial assistance for repairs and capital improvement projects. Individuals in the South District are invited to become members of the Builders Club by committing to respond to calls for donations up to 3 times a year, pledging to give at least $25 per call. Grant requests are considered by the South District Union Board, which is responsible for providing faithful stewardship of donated funds. Grants are limited to available funds. South District churches wishing to apply should contact the South District Superintendent. So for the other districts, I mentioned that there are other funds available. I don't know, though, that every single district has that, but I know that every single district loves the South District plan or whatever it is. And they're all looking at, well, how could we do that in our district? So that's good news. It's kind of a to be continued. But if you're in a situation right now where your church does need some capital improvement, you've got a project in the works or an idea for it or whatever, contact your superintendent and see what's available. That's really, regardless of what programs are available in each district, that's step one. You just got to contact the district superintendent, tell them what's going on, and see how they can help or what's available. Because they also might be able to connect you with something through new and vital faith communities. They might have some different grants. Different stuff happens at different times of the year. So that's what I wanted to share about that. Just a quick update so everybody knows it's not uniform through every district. Each district is unique and has different resources available. So questions about that or comments? Okay. The next item is I really wanted to do a quick little demo. Page Community United Methodist Church was asking if I knew of any churches that had maybe 20 extra copies of The Faith We Sing, that they could really use them. And so that got me thinking about, well, number one, sure, I could share that request via Tuesday Talks, but I'm going to share my screen again. I wanted to make sure that you all were aware that when you go to the Desert Southwest Conference website and you click on classifieds, not only will you find information about jobs, but you'll also find information about item listings. So if, just like it says here, swap, sell, request, give away, you can post a message here, and I'm logged in, so it looks a little bit different than what you would see, but here's Page Community's requests for hymnals. Here's a message we had back in June about VBS curriculum. If your church is looking for some of this for maybe for next summer, you could contact the church. If your church has VBS supplies that we're not going to do the same program again, but we had a lot of great stuff, put it here so other churches can benefit from it. So keep that in mind. You just go to dscumc.org/classifieds, or go to our homepage and click on the classifieds button to find the different options to post a job, opening job, or an item that you want to give away or ask for or whatever. The other thing I wanted to mention is we also have a Facebook group called Ask, Give, Get. And I'll send you guys the URL to this, but I'll also show you how to get to it. So on this page, you can put all sorts of stuff of what you might be looking for or want to share, all sorts of good stuff. And oh my goodness, I have to remember to tell you guys, I will in the follow-up, UMCOR has a, okay, wait, first questions about the giving stuff away, asking for stuff. No, okay, great. Because thankfully that Facebook group reminded me that UMCOR has changed. I'm going to send you all a link to an article that Tom Maddock just published. Many of our churches do the flood buckets, the hygiene buckets as a mission project. And we used to have to send them. There was like a couple options of where to send the buckets. It was a Sager Brown and something about like a West Depot or something. Well, no longer. That now UMCOR wants every conference to hang on to their own buckets and distribute them to their own teams. Conferences can still partner with other conferences to help out and send some of their buckets over if a neighboring conference needs them. So it's not like it's limited to Desert Southwest Conference. It can still help all over the place. But if your church is going to be working on a mission project like that of filling these buckets, ash sifter buckets, the hygiene buckets, or the flood buckets, be sure to contact Tom Maddock at the disasterresponse.org. No, disasterresponse@dscumc.org. I'll include the email address in my follow-up and let him know that you've got so many buckets or you will have these buckets and he'll let you know where you can drop them off. We've got more than one location throughout the Desert Southwest Conference, and occasionally they are very full. So, contact him first so he can let you know if it's a good time to work on that or if they're ready to receive those buckets. Oh, so glad I remembered about that. And I will include that article link in the follow-up notes. So I'm going to share my screen one more time, and then I'm going to ask Jeremy to share his screen to show us about how to figure out, how to figure out where your website is hosted. So if I was to go to facebook.com/DSEUMC, here, if you click on groups, that's probably the easiest way to find not just the Ask, Give, Get group, but many other groups that we have for the Desert Southwest Conference in case you're looking for a church and society helps, or whatever it is. You can join any of these groups and recommend them to your church members or committee chairs, whatever. Questions about that? Okay, so why would someone want to know where their website is hosted? One of our churches just asked me about that because they received or have been receiving an email asking to, hey, you've got to pay for this, or maybe it was upgrade your website here or something like that. I haven't seen the email yet, so I don't know exactly what they were asked about, but they're concerned that, is this legitimate? Because I think it's a new staff person at the church, so they didn't know where their website was hosted and weren't sure where to look for it. So in case any of our other churches are in that situation, Jeremy's going to show us what to do to figure out where your website is hosted. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Thank you for the intro. Let's see, let me share my screen. Okay, so typically right off the bat, you can sometimes get pretty lucky if you're looking for it. Most of the time it's going to be all the way down here on the header. You can see right here, it would be part of United Methodist Communications. But let's say for some reason it's not down there and you need to look for it. There's typically two websites that we can use. What you'll do first is obviously you will just copy minus the HTTPS part, copy that. And Christina and I have used this one, but just know that you have a limited amount of searches. So it is effective. However, it'll kind of block you out unless you create a login after a bit. But I will put this in the description of this chat, and then I can even send it to Christina, put it in the follow-up if she wants to as well. But typically, so when you're looking for it, sometimes it'll be right here where it says IP location. It says United Methodist. That is a hit or miss. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. If you guys are looking for another thing that you have to pay for, like where is this domain registered to, like where do I have to pay to renew my actual URL, that will sometimes be up with who you registered for. So GoDaddy would be this one. So if this website doesn't work for you, you can also go to this one as well. Lookup.icann.org. I'm pretty sure that they are helped run by Google, so they're pretty connected with most Google websites stuff as well. So, but you can just paste your URL in here, and what you do in this case is to find that registry form, if like where your domain is registered from, is go to registrant information right here, and then you can see that it's GoDaddy. But for some reason, if you cannot find, that you're acquainted, say, with United Methodist Communications, just feel free to reach out to us anytime. That'll be at communications@dscumc.org. I'll put that in the chat as well. But yeah, that's basically it. And Christina, please let me know if I left anything out.
That was perfect. I guess, what was one other thing to mention? Let's see, we said why you would need to look this up. So in this case, if this church received email from GoDaddy saying, hey, your domain, I don't know how they word it, your domain bill is due. they'd be able to check it and see, oh, well, that is where we purchased our domain. That is where it's registered. So, okay, they can go ahead and pay it. Let me think here. Oh, yes, I know what it was. So the other thing, let me stop sharing. So part of that question was asking me, I thought that because we created our website through UMC churches, maybe they did it through a website building grant that they were eligible for. They found out from Desert Southwest Conference Communications about it, or they went to one of our one-day build your website workshops. And because they did that, they thought that means the Desert Southwest Conference is paying for their hosting. So why are we getting this bill? Well, no, the Desert Southwest Conference is not paying for any of that. No church credit card from the conference is tied to any church's website. Somebody would have had to have entered credit card information to get their website out there, but maybe it was like a first year is free type of a grant. And after that, then your church has to pay for it if they want to keep with UMC churches, or if it was through Aboundant. I think those are the only two companies that we've used or recommended for the free website grants or quick building grants. But again, it's not going to be renewed by the Desert Southwest Conference. Go ahead, Chris.
Just sort of along with that, we actually got one of those, I think it was an email or a letter yesterday. And it's super deceptive because it wasn't actually anything related to anything that we use. But if you read carefully, it does somewhere have to say this is not an invoice or this is not a bill, which this one did. So if you make sure to like really closely read what the letter says, most of the time it's going to say something like that. Awesome.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jim.
We had a situation at our church. We have several people changing over, and it threw them into a dizzy because GoDaddy had sent them notifications. They're upgrading WordPress to 7.0.1. And then for those who are using that PHP editor on top of that, they were upgrading that also. And of course, people are saying, well, what do we owe? And, so it comes down to that too. But I think, like Chris was saying, you have to be very careful with the way you read those, because some of them are appropriate and some are not.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other? There we go. So if there's no other comments on that, I'm just going to do a quick run through of some of the events that are coming up that I want to make sure that you are aware of. I will include them in the follow-up email. And if you have any questions, start thinking about those questions now so we can go through them. So the first event is the Candidacy Mentor Training. This is from the Board of Ordained Ministry. It's on August 31st at 10 a.m. I'll send you the link to this. If you have questions about it, email boom@dscumc.org. And I have a question. While you guys are watching, how clear is this text? Does it look super tiny? I'm always sharing so I can see it really well, but when I saw Jeremy's, like, gosh, that's so tiny. Would it be better if I zoomed in? Oops, that's probably too much. Is that, now can you read it? Okay, so I'll keep that in mind next time. I'll pay attention to how many times I zoomed in. Okay, then the other event is a cultural competency train the trainer, training event that's on September 7th. I will include this link as well. So this is part 2. Cora's already done one round of trainings, and I believe it was in person. And I know some people have been waiting for, like, I'd like to do this. I'd like to train people, but I'm going to wait until they host it online only. I don't want to have to go all the way to wherever. I have not heard that they're planning on doing a training like this online only, especially right now when we can do in person. This type of training, like the way you interact with each other and with the trainer. I know Jim has done one of these trainings before, and I think he could tell you a little bit about, like, could it work online?
Christina and I had quite a discussion about this because I live far out of town, and I had been to a seminar the week before. It was a seminary seminar where we had 630 people on a Zoom link from 20 countries. And I'm thinking, why don't we do this type of training online? Which it can be done, but I went to the training for church leaders last Saturday, and they did just the cultural competency training. And it was very good. We had Sylvia Harris from Wesley United Methodist Church and Adriana Gilbert, and they did a real good job with that, keeping it moving and making it interesting. The big thing is that they do affinity diagrams for part of their training, and you could probably do that in some way on Zoom, but it wouldn't be easy. But I would recommend the class for anybody.
Okay, so
Would we need to have gone through the first one to do the second one?
no, thank you for asking that. That's a great question.
Good
No,
question.
yeah. The idea, I think there's 8 modules altogether, and they're trying to get trainers for each district to be able to go to churches and host a training for the church leaders. So first it's train the trainer to be able to do that, and then churches will be able to request training. This part 2 one is on bias. And yeah, you don't have to be a trainer for the first one to be a trainer for the second one. And you don't have to try to commit to be a trainer again for any other modules. Each one is unique. Okay. What else? Okay, so then the last item that I wanted to tell you about as far as upcoming events is United Methodist Communications has offered this training in the past. I can't remember who had attended it last time, but I know some of our church communicators had attended it on developing a strategy for your communication plan. It's $30, so it's not free, but let's go ahead and click in there. And I hope you saw that there's a deadline to register is September 7th, but it doesn't start, I think, until September 12th. So this just kind of tells you a little bit more about what's going on each week, what it's all about. So I'll send you the link. You can take a look at it, see if it's something you're interested in. Maybe you already have a communication strategy at your church and you don't need this. It might be something if you if you've been thinking about either expanding your team, your communication team, so that it's not just on, maybe the one staff person or a small communication volunteer team. Doing a training like this would be a great opportunity to show someone, give someone that sense of like, okay, I get what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, I could volunteer on the communication team. So think of it that way. It's, the Desert Southwest Conference doesn't gain anything by encouraging people to do these trainings. It's just a different way. I'm trying to share with you a different way to look at these trainings, that maybe it shouldn't always be your communication staff person. And I always assume there's just one person, but maybe you're lucky and your church has a whole team of communicators. You could use these trainings as a way to do leadership development, to encourage people to participate in the church if they haven't already been participating. So something to think about. Okay, so that's all I needed to share today, but I understand Lo has a question about memorycare.com.
Yeah, I just wanted to get the group's feedback on this. If you guys have been approached, we have a salesperson who's been very persistent with us from an organization called memorycare.com. Obviously, it's a for-profit. We're a little unclear about their business model because on their website it doesn't show any licenses, nor does it show any fees to purchase. So whenever I see that, I just automatically assume that they're selling user data. That's how they're paying their bills. And some of the resources don't look too bad. Obviously, they're trying to promote, services for an aging population with dementia. And they say they work with churches to, have this put on their website so that this can be of use to members in the congregation. But before we make a decision on this, and I think we also need to reach out and talk to the salesman. I don't want to just do things through email. I wanted to see if anybody else has had any experience with this organization, with this company, and if they've approached you or what you think about this. I mean, we can also go to the, Pima County Council on Aging and put some resources, linked to them. And, I would feel better if this was a nonprofit as opposed to, I have nothing against, for-profit companies, but I don't like for-profit companies that aren't clear about their business model up front. That's the thing.
I was trying to look them up on the Better Business Bureau website just to see what information there are on them. But I don't see them yet because I can't figure out where they're located. It looks like you can look for a memorycare.com in your area. So I'll look that up.
And I think they are related to memory care facilities, which is assisted housing. So obviously, I think they're trying to steer traffic towards, folks who might, be interested in learning about, a place where a loved one could live. But again, I'm not sure if that's the real reason this is set up this way, and then the other thing too is if we put them on our website and we're steering traffic towards them, and they're selling user data, then we're facilitating that. They're making money from what they're doing. And it seems like we're just helping them to, run their company. And I just want to make sure that it's legitimate. I want to make sure that we're not, being taken advantage of, and that we're not putting any of our congregation who is going to be potentially going and using their resources in any jeopardy as well.
So if you want, I could include in my email, my follow-up email, a question asking, does anyone use memorycare.com? Does anyone know anything about it that you can provide some feedback? So I could do that. I'm wondering, just because my in-laws, my husband actually just met with a social care or social worker to figure out what resources were available for my in-laws maybe just a couple weeks ago. And I just knew it was going to be one of those cases where we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's available. And after talking to them, this one meeting, there was so many different services available. And I guess part of it, like Meals on Wheels, that I always thought that that's like a single organization, and turns out, no, there's so many different organizations that can provide Meals on Wheels. And so anyway, I was just sharing that to say, maybe ask a social worker about memory care to see what they say about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
And maybe they even have a better site to link to. So I'll ask other churches to see if anybody's using memory care. Is it .com or .org? Memorycare.com.
It's .com. Yeah. I mean, if it was .org, I probably would have just put them up on the site already. But yeah, which may have been also premature. But with the .com, I just want to I want to take one more step of due diligence.
Yeah. Well, Jim.
Do we have any resources through the conference I know we have a number of people who are probably going to need some type of assisted care. And as you mentioned, Christina, that is really tough for them to make decisions on that, because you always run into somebody trying to sell you something, and you would like to have, what would you say, a little bit more objective.
Well, you know what? We do have, so we have the disabilities committee. I could reach out to them to see what recommendations they have, if they know of any resources. But we also now have, along the lines of health and caring, there's a clergy wellness and a laity wellness committee. So I could reach out to them to see if they could do some research and let us, give some guidance for churches and church communities on step one. If you find that you're in a place where you need to start looking at low cost resources, like what should you do? So I'll see what they've got available.
Okay, I appreciate it. Well, where we are in Glendale, we have the Thunderbird Resort, which we have a number of people from our church that have gone to that, and they are very pleased with it. So I don't have any problems referring people there. But out where I live in Anthem, there's not that many resources.
Referring people to this memorycare.com?
Well, no. This was there was 2 new facilities in Anthem that have memory care with them. But I wanted to know more about them before I referred anybody there.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Hey, anybody else have anything? Okay. Oh yeah, go ahead, Antonita. Oh, anytime yet.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay. We are going to have a fall craft festival in October 29. I would like to know if I can find the flyer where I can find it. In that way, this flyer go to all the churches.
Well, okay, so that's a great question. Sometimes there are events where we can go ahead and publish to all the churches about it. And sometimes there's events where it just doesn't make sense to send to all the churches. So one way to find out, and so you would send that information to me and I can include it like in a Tuesday talk, or depending on the event, it might even be a website article on the dscumc.org and it gets included in the newsletter. So I'll first explain, how do you know if this event or information, it qualifies to be sent through Desert Southwest Conference communication channels? So one of the things that you could ask is this an event that is unique that other churches are not already offering? So like if it was your church rummage sale, well, other churches offer rummage sales. Is this an event but let's say maybe no other churches do. So if it's a yes, then you could ask, is this an event that churches all over the Desert Southwest Conference would fly to or drive 3 or 4 hours to attend this event? So if your rummage sale includes authentic memorabilia from Elvis Presley or Princess Diana that you're just giving away,
Yeah.
yes, people are going to fly down or drive down. So that's 2 things to think about. I'd love to be able to share information about every church's stuff, but then people are going to start to tune us out because every church, there's seasons where there's a lot going on at our churches. So eventually, like, people just be like, it's too much information. I can't get it. So for that reason, we have to be limited. But,
Yeah.
But sometimes it could be something like, well, I don't know that let's say you're in the North District and you're having this rummage sale. So, well, maybe not somebody from the South District isn't going to go down, but I think other churches in this area would be really interested in attending because all the proceeds for this rummage sale are going to go to help the flood victims or relocation services or whatever for all the flash flood communities in this district. So we're trying to raise money to help all the communities, not just our church. So in that sense, like, oh, wow, yeah, then all the churches in your community would want to know about it so they can publicize it and help their community as well. So then it could go through district communications. So another thing you could do, let's say your event doesn't really fit with any of those qualifications, then if your church has it posted on your church's website or on their social media, you could send me an email about it with a link to where I can find that information and just ask me to share it on Facebook. Because, we've got audiences that are all over the conference there, so we could share it that way and raise some awareness about your event that way.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You know what's one other way is if the event is not something that people would fly to. It's maybe an event that maybe other churches have it, but there's a unique spin on this that could be a learning moment for churches. I could share information about it, not so much like an invitation to, everybody come out. They'd still find out about it. So if they wanted to, they could, but it would be publicized like, hey, did you know that this church is doing this way? Maybe the spin there is you were able to take advantage of a $10,000 Google grant to advertise this event, the rummage sale, that every church has that, but not every church is using a Google grant to advertise. So then I could share the event information as a how to apply for these Google grants.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else? No. Okay. Then I think we are good. I hope to see you all next week. And don't forget to keep emailing communications@dscumc.org. If you have a question, a